I used to have this myth, before going to meetups is I thought in my mind that you can only go to a certain meetup if you have expertise in that field or if you know someone within that field. The truth of the matter is that these meetups, they're designed for anyone and everyone who's interested in something regarding technology, or it could be JavaScript or just anything in general. That's what these meetups are designed for. They're designed because, you want to learn something. You want to meet new people, and network and have fun along the way. And so I think that's why I love the Brisbane space, especially because even though Brisbane is smaller compared to Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane I love because, the community especially is very supportive and they're always looking out for each other.
Welcome to the smart community, smart regions, smart towns, and smart cities. It's where we live, work, and play. With smart communities, the future starts today. Big data, smart mobility, emerging trends galore. The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.
Hi, Smart Community friends. In this episode of the Smart Community Podcast, I have a great conversation with Ashleigh Wilson, a community manager at Coda Academy and a Neurodiversity Advocate. We recorded this episode in December of 2020, so you may hear us refer to 2021 quite a lot. In this episode, we talk about Ashleigh's background and how an interest in tech led to her studying IT and then becoming passionate about diversity and community in the tech world. Ashleigh tells us about her experience disclosing her Asperger's syndrome diagnosis to her work and community and how this led to her public speaking and neurodiversity advocacy work. Ashleigh explains the importance of neurodiversity in smart communities and why she advocates for hybrid approaches to work and business rather than traditional silos. We talk about Ashleigh's role at Coda Academy and how her willingness to follow curiosity and give new things a go has led to her career progression there. Ashleigh and I then discuss the importance of community and checking in with each other in this digital world we live in now, especially in the wake of the pandemic. We finish our chat discussing the emerging trends of online education, Coworking 3.0, and career pivots. As always, we hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Hello, Ashleigh. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Zoe?
I am fabulous, and I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for inviting me and for organising. I'm super excited for it.
No worries. Let's just jump straight in. And can you tell us about your background and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, awesome. So my background is, I guess, let's trace back to my early years, I guess, where that's all started, I think. So I'm Ashleigh. I'm in Brisbane. I was actually, at the age of 3, was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, which is basically a developmental disorder. And so really that's kind of led me to where I am today. Fast forward 30-something years later. So I work at Coda Academy looking after the community side of things, which is really cool. There's a lot happening in the tech community. I guess that's what I'll definitely be talking a lot about throughout the podcast. And I come from a diverse background, I guess you can say, where, I didn't know anything about the community, didn't know anything about, the space within the technology world in Brisbane. And then that's where I developed a passion for it in 2013, where after many years of just doing the same work day in, day out, I knew I wanted to make a change. And so I went to QUT, decided to do a Bachelor of Information Technology, majoring in Information Systems in 2015. Still then, I had no idea about the space, nothing at all, but I was really keen. But I didn't know where to start, and I didn't know where my career would project to. And shortly enough, at the end of 2017, I came across Coda Academy. They were hiring just to look after operations, and I started working there in January 2018, and that's where I started to develop this passion for the community side of things and also the startups and, just how much there's so much within that space, but there's also so much that you can do with it, and so many incredible people that you can meet as well. And because of that, I've been really fortunate to meet so many people, to develop some great networking connections. And it wasn't until 2019, last year, where I decided to disclose to my work at that time, before I disclosed it with anyone else, about my diagnosis, which that was definitely a really hard time for me, especially because, it's taking something that's really personal and, sharing it to your work. And I was really scared as to, will I be perceived differently, or how will they react? But I've been, receiving so much positivity and support from that. And then I disclosed it with my community, which, again, that was also really hard for me. But again, I received so much support. And that's where it kind of trajected me into this, I guess, other field that I've become passionate about, which is public speaking. And so I've been able to delve into neurodiversity and the importance of neurodiversity in workplaces, why it's important and the benefits of it. And because of that, I've done many different talks in Brisbane, interstate, most recently, I guess, international, virtually international with Pluralsight a while ago, which was a lot of fun. And it's really built my confidence as well to understand this area more and why this area is so important, especially during 2020 as well. So that's never going to stop, and I'm always going to do that. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like a little bit about me in a nutshell, and I'll save the best parts throughout the podcast.
That was great. Thanks so much for sharing. And yeah, no, I love that you're so passionate about this space, and that when you said, you needed to change, I really resonated with that as well. And then, you went and did your study, and then where to start. And I think a lot of people have that moment where it's like, oh, I've got this thing now that I like, and I'm, where to start. So that's so great. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing. Okay, well, let's go to what sparked your interest in the smart community space.
Yeah, I guess what sparked my interest was, again, it definitely led back to what led me to spark my interest within the community as a whole. So before I joined Coda, I knew nothing about it. And then I started going to meetups. So I started going to all these different tech meetups just to understand the space a little bit more and meet so many people and to learn more about what's happening out there, not just with tech as a whole, but I think just generally as a whole. And I think for me, that's where I kind of perceive the smart community is that, because it's lots of different things, but it's also smart community for me is, for me, it's about bringing the community together. It's also about, bringing new ideas, new innovative ideas, and being able to not have it siloed, but also, communicate, talk about it. How can we bring those ideas to life, And that's why one of the many reasons why it has sparked my interest in that space. But also, I think definitely now leading towards 2020 and thinking about 2020 and, what's happened and all that, I think it's also definitely reignited my interest, to delve into other areas as well. So, I think that's where, with everything that's happening, with things going virtual, digital transformation, Zoom, which has skyrocketed. I didn't know about Zoom until when everyone started using it. And it's just like, oh, I better get onto the bandwagon with that and start using it. And so I think that's also another reason why it's bringing the community together, because despite the fact with what 2020 has happened for not just me, but for so many of us and businesses and individuals, it's also about finding ways which, okay, how can we support each other in this digital age that we now have to grow accustomed to? But at the same time as well, we've always had this. We've always had this many years. It's now, because of everything that's happened this year, that it's really come into fruition, and it's something that is not going to go away anytime soon. And so, it's always going to be there. And because of everything with 2020, when it's part of like I guess not the new normal, but I guess it's the continuing normal, I guess we can say, with the digital transformation from there.
Yeah, and I think what I found is we've tried out a lot of things in 2020 And then it will be like, well, what do we want to keep and what do we want to throw away? And that could be new stuff, could be old stuff, could be stuff we thought we wanted to do, then realize we don't or whatever. So I think, the new reality of 2021 and beyond will be interesting. And like you said, we've had a lot of this stuff before, but I think what COVID did was bring it to, particularly if you had a knowledge-based job, bring it into the same level playing field as face-to-face.
Definitely. And I think this also goes in line with, meetups and events and conferences that have now had to switch to virtual, which in a way for me, it's still good because it's now become, no matter where you are, no matter where you're in the world or if in your town or city or anywhere else, you can now attend these events virtually and you're going to get so much information from some of the most extraordinary people within that space. And that to me is really good. So it's very similar to with Pluralsight, because Pluralsight, it's a US-based conference, but because of COVID, they've now had to switch to virtual. And it was one of your previous guests, actually, Brooke Jameson. She is amazing within that tech space, but also doing some extraordinary work within Brisbane, but also outside of Brisbane as well with her talks. She introduced me to Pluralsight and she knew that I love doing public speaking, and she mentioned, hey, have you heard about this? Applications close today. So it's like, I should probably get onto this as well. And that to me is really good because, I can still share my passion and my expertise within neurodiversity, not just locally, but now internationally, and I think that's what makes it really special.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your expertise. And tell us why neurodiversity is so important, within smart cities and communities, but just in general.
Absolutely. Neurodiversity for me, it's very important for me. And again, I didn't come across this term until last year. So after I disclosed it with my work, I heard about this conference that was coming up called Cause Fest, which was in Melbourne earlier this year in February. And I knew I wanted to apply for it, but I didn't know what my proposal talk was going to be about. So I was kind of still in that research phase. And it wasn't until one of the girls at the time at my work, she mentioned, I wanted to have a workshop with her just so we can hash out ideas as to what should I present about. And I had different ideas such as, women in tech, imposter syndrome. And then she kind of trailed me down to my diagnosis and sharing that with my work in the community. And then she mentioned about neurodiversity and workplaces. And I'm thinking, what is neurodiversity? I've never heard of this word before. And so I did some research on it, and basically two things. It's, neuro, which is the brain, and obviously diversity, which is a range of different kinds. So when you put those together, it's a range of different kinds of the brain. So you've got Asperger's, Tourette's, ADHD, dyslexia. Those are just some of them. There's a lot out there. And that's when I decided to look into workplaces that support neurodiversity. And there's a lot of amazing workplaces that do support that. And they also discuss, why it's important to support neurodiversity workplaces. And there's a lot of different factors. The few of those is they have so much creativity to think outside the box. They can bring so much to the table in terms of, how they think, how they do things. And there's a lot out there. And so for workplaces to support that, to me, that's really important, but also creates more inclusivity, but it also opens doors to more opportunities, for people like myself that are always yearning to challenge ourselves, to grow and to learn and to do more. Without that, it can be really hard for me, especially towards my own growth professionally and personally. I need those opportunities to think outside the box, to try different things, even if I've never done them before. If it's something that you're passionate about, go for it. And that's where, technology comes in, with coding, especially. Coding and technology is, especially for people like myself that are neurodiverse, that's incredible because, that's one of the many different ways of problem solving, challenging ourselves and to, think creatively. But it's also, for me, attention to detail. it's all about that, which I'm a huge advocate for that for some reason. I love just those little tiny things, but also I'm also one of those people where I will ask a lot of questions only because I'm keen. I just need to know more as to the ins and outs of it, as a, just asking, why is it this way, or how can we do things differently, and everything else like that. So just by asking those questions can really make a huge difference. But also, yeah, it's great because in this day and age, there's a lot of workplaces that are now supporting neurodiversity in those spaces, like Microsoft, IBM, SAP, BHP. They have an amazing neurodiversity program as well. So it's all just about finding more about, other different industries and other companies that are bringing more neurodiversity in those spaces. And if not, what can we do to make those little changes, which can make a huge difference, especially long term?
Yeah. I think long term it's so important. And also, like you said, bring that creativity and different ways of thinking. And like there are so many options to do things, right? And we need those different ideas. Otherwise we get stuck in the same. And like you said, opening up those opportunities, because maybe you wouldn't put your hand up for those initially because you think, oh, that's not for me. But when it's like, oh no, we welcome, we want, bring those new ideas, bring that different way of thinking, get in here, we want you. Then you're like, oh, okay, cool, this is for me, let's do this. And then you encourage other people in as well.
Absolutely. And for me, I am a huge advocate for hybrid. So not just being siloed and doing the same thing day in, day out, because to me, that does not equal to growth. It doesn't equal to that, because if you're being siloed, how are you going to look into other departments when you're just doing the same thing? So to me, I have to relay so much, to everyone, why it's important to be hybrid, why it's important to dip your toes into other different areas, because that's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to challenge yourselves, is by doing that. If it's siloed and you're just going to do the same thing, then there's something missing with that business. For businesses to allow creativity and to allow more hybridness, that's really important, and that we need to see more of that. Well, I need to see more of that as well, because that's going to be one of the best ways to bring more ideas and to bring more innovation, but also to bring more openness and communication as well across all departments, not just one department.
Yeah, that's so important. And I guess it kind of leads to, one of the questions was about integration. And so I think you've answered that so well. I want to talk a bit more about you and tell us a bit more about your role and what you do day to day.
Yeah, good question. So I guess my role is, I like to consider it to be quite diverse in different aspects. So we have Coder Academy here in Brisbane. And so Coder Academy is, we deliver accredited courses, bootcamp style courses in full stack web development. So we have our 10-month course and our 6-month course. And these courses are great for those that are really seeking that career change towards full stack web development or web development or anything regarding, technology, because technology is so broad now. It's not just one area, it's lots of different areas. So it can be UX, UI, design. So I think that's the really awesome thing about it is, you can look into other departments and other areas that you're really passionate about whilst you're studying, which to me, I think that's really special. So my role comes into play is I say to myself, I do everything besides teaching, essentially. So I've been with Coda since coming up to 3 years in January next year. So I've been there from the very start. And I came in, again, with no knowledge about the tech space. I came in to support the students in some way, shape or form. So I started with student services, operations, just basic operations of the campus that we're in at the time, just those little things. And then there was this thing that I heard, which I've never used, called Twitter. And I'm thinking, I need to get onto bandwagon with this. I need to know how to use this. So I started to use it with, so we have mentors come in once a week to do presentations, whether it's, about their company, about what they do day to day, tips and tricks, everything else like that. And I opened up a Twitter account and I wanted to, just to give them a shout out, just little shout outs and thanking them for their time and also started getting into LinkedIn more, which I'd never used to do. So I started getting into that more, and it's just little things like that. And then I started to, develop a small understanding of the space and the people and the companies. And I wanted to put my hand up and say, hey, I'm interested in organizing internships. I've never done it before, but I'm really keen. And that's, again, hybridness. That's the only way you're going to learn is by doing something. So myself and one of the educators, Janelle Brandon, she and I organized internships. And we didn't have a partnerships team at that time. So it was just really her and I, not in partnerships team, organizing internships. So meeting different companies, organizing personal branding workshops, getting resumes ready for students, reviewing resumes, everything else like that, having mentors come in to help the students with that as well. And so, then I started to do that. I've done partnerships. I've helped out with partnerships as well. And I haven't really taught a class as such. I'd love to. That'd be an amazing opportunity. But I've also, helped out with school holiday workshops, even run school holiday workshops as well. So, and run events. So pre-COVID, we used to run events called Tech Bites, which were once a month panel talks. And also outside of Coda Academy, I also run Tech Newbies, Brisbane Tech Newbies, which is a local meetup where the name speaks for itself. It's a meetup for anyone and everyone interested in technology and everything about technology. And I guess it's a little bit of what I do from there.
So you basically facilitate this community, and if you see an opportunity, you go, I haven't done that before, but I think I can, and let's learn and let's do that. And really helping people get into technology more and more in both those aspects, the tech newbies, which I love that concept. And because I think with the smart community thing, people think that they have to know a lot about technology to even get into the space. And I want more and more people involved, because not everyone needs to know how to code. But if you want to learn how to code, that's great. Dive in and do that. But we also need, like you were talking about, those different ways of thinking. And that might be, they're really good at running events or really good at engaging people and different backgrounds or whatever. So it's really important that we have that diversity in this space, because we need it in the future. Otherwise, we'll have tech solutions that don't serve the needs of our communities, which is not very useful.
Absolutely. And another point that you mentioned as well is, and again, I used to have this myth, before going to meetups, is I thought in my mind that you can only go to a certain meetup if you have expertise in that field or if you know someone within that field. The truth of the matter is that these meetups, they're designed for anyone and everyone who's interested in something regarding technology, or it could be JavaScript or just anything in general. That's what these meetups are designed for. They're designed because, you want to learn something. You want to meet new people, and network and have fun along the way. And so I think that's why I love the Brisbane space, especially because even though Brisbane is smaller compared to Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane I love because, the community especially is very supportive and they're always looking out for each other, and it's very tight-knit. And, we're here to, if we come across an opportunity, we'll let them know. And so it's kind of like that, that win-win. We're helping each other, but also we're supporting each other during this journey. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, with 2020, with the effects that 2020 has had on myself especially, but all businesses, it's also raised the importance of why it's so important to check in with each other, because there might be times where we're not coping well. And it's just little check-ins like that can make such a big difference, especially long term. And, it's especially when I was stood down in March this year, that took a huge toll on me mentally and emotionally. And it wasn't until I, my network know in LinkedIn just about my situation, just so they know, like, I'm okay, but I'm not okay, but I am going to get through this because I'm a fighter. And I know I will get through everything that hurdles my way. And the amount of support that flown through was just overwhelming, just people that are checking in because they really care for you and they want to They want to see, they want to be there to help you. And I think that's, with 2020, just why it's important for that. And that needs to continue on as well from there.
Yeah. No, thanks so much again for sharing that story, because I think it is important that and what I've experienced is, when we've gone digital, we've got to realize that we're still real people at the end of the day, which sounds crazy, but sometimes I get in my head that I'm on a screen, I don't know, it's bizarre. I'm sure someone must be studying it, because it's like that it's not this real interaction, but we're all real people, no matter whether we're on a screen or we're face to face. We're all real people. We all have real feelings. We all have real things that happen to us. And I think sometimes we can probably get caught up in our work or, technology or meeting and all these things and all this digital stuff. What I talk about is, our smart life is our real life now, because we're integrating into that. And I think it takes some time to adjust. But also, like you just sharing that story, then it brings us back down to the ground as well, which is so important. And I think because that's where we build, right? That's how we build these relationships and new information, new technology, and change the way we do things. It starts from real people. So, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that.
No, my pleasure. And, obviously that day was really hard. I remember that week in itself was really hard, just trying to reel in, okay, so this is real now. This is real life now. And, what I did during that period was I wanted to build my skill sets. So I use that time effectively to build my skill sets so that when it comes to coming back, I'm equipped. I've learned something new during my time off, and I'm, ready to harness that and ready to hopefully bring that forward. And it was just little things, whether it's coding, learning JavaScript or attending a conference or, watching TED Talks. I wanted to keep myself busy somehow. And I think that's where emerging trends are really starting to come in as well, with the emerging trends of digital transformation, the emerging trends, for me especially, education. Education 2020, there's, with everything that's, classes and everything like that going online, it's also opened up opportunities as well for the people that are really interested to learn something new during this time of lockdown back in March, April. We can have that opportunity for that. So I use that time to go on Udemy, pick courses that I'm really interested in and develop my skill sets through there, and or learn something new, whether it's about inclusivity, diversity, through TED Talks. There was an Atlassian virtual conference that happened earlier this year that was amazing. I learned so much from there. And it's also really opened up those gateways for those emerging technologies to come into fruition. And, the power of learning from your home or from the library or from a cafe or no matter where you are, you can learn something new. And, we can now bring that into fruition into our workplaces and school life, home life, anything else like that. So I think that's also what 2020 has brought, is just those emerging technologies that are coming to life, which is really cool.
Well, speaking of emerging technologies, well, you don't have to talk about technology, but let's talk about trends. What are the emerging trends that people aren't talking about enough?
Yeah, so for me, and I was having a think about this as well before the podcast. So I think definitely, the co-working spaces. I think I was reading an article, it's called Co-working 3.0 kind of thing. So, you've got your traditional co-working spaces, but now there's all these other different types of co-working spaces that now open up their doors because they want to see, more people come in. But also for me, it's about bringing new ideas forward. It's about bringing new innovation forward. So there's some really awesome co-working spaces in Brisbane, such as City Labs, WeWork, which they've now got 3 locations in Brisbane. So that's amazing. So it's just to see so much of that happening. There's also really another co-working space that's in Chermside and I believe Fortitude Valley. I can't remember the name of it is, but I'll definitely let you know once I find out as well. But also trends, like I said before, with education, which I guess at the start of the year, pre-COVID, I guess was just becoming a thing. But then as 2020 continued, it started to emerge even further. So such things like if you're interested in coding, you can learn coding as well online, whether it's through Udemy, Code Academy, but there's a few other ones like Treehouse, Udacity, all those sorts of things. I think that's also what's really brought that to life as well. But also, you know, with technology, and I guess these trends, they're emerging, and I think they're going to continue to emerge. So I think for me, we're kind of still at that starting point, because at first it was like, oh wow, it's all exciting, it's fresh, it's new. And we've seen Code Academy and Udemy, those courses, we've seen those before. And like with people with employment changes that are happening, you know, it's also led to, for me, opportunities. If you want to make a career pivot, we can do that as well. So, and that's also how I found out about, there's a career pivot program that I joined during lockdown, which was called She Pivots. And what it is, it's a free program for anyone that's really keen to learn more about how to career pivot, but also, you know, how to think positively and how to learn more about yourself and your skill sets of what your passions are. That's where you can, you know, learn more about that. And so during that, I was able to learn more about myself and, you know, that hard-hitting question, what makes me remarkable? And that's a hard question to answer for personally, because, you know, you think, oh, yeah, I can do this and this, but oh, that's it. I guess that's all I can do. But when someone, you know, talks about you, it's like, well, this person here is amazing at this and this and this, and oh, they've done this talks at this and this. It's just like, oh, I never thought about that. Like, because I'm one of those people where I can sometimes, you know, close in if I don't want to talk about myself at that aspect. But when someone does, it's just like, it brings me back to be like, actually, you know what? I am remarkable because I've done all these different things. I'm just sometimes might be too scared to talk about it in person. But with everything that's happened, I'm now starting to realize, you know, why I am remarkable, because I've been able to combat the effects of 2020 mentally and emotionally and financially, but also having that support system there through my network, which is really good. So, yeah, I guess bringing back to the emerging trends of that, I do get carried away. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. Loving listening.
Emerging trends for me, it's about education, co-working spaces, and again as well, support through, you know, there's a lot of now mental health programs that are now becoming available online. And I think that's actually a really good point is, you know, they are starting to emerge so that, you know, you don't have to go to a physical doctor. You can actually use technology to steer you in the right direction for the best support from there.
It's been so great to chat with you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Zoe. I really, really appreciate it.
One last question. How can people connect with you?
Yes. All right. So there's two different ways. So I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I use those ones quite almost on a daily basis. So you can catch me on LinkedIn. You'll see my photo, I guess the backdrop of me talking at Pulsefest. That's me. And my Twitter, it's just at Ashleigh. It's a previous nickname that my best friend used to call me years ago. So I thought, you know what, that's going to be my Twitter handle now. So
love it. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes so people can click away and find you. And I found you on LinkedIn, so it works.
Awesome.
And it's been so great to chat, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, though. I really appreciate it.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
The Smart Community podcast is brought to you by My Smart Community. If you're trying to deal with disruption, not sure what technologies to buy, need to facilitate genuine collaboration, then we can help. Email hello@mysmart.community or head to www.mysmart.community/consulting.
Thanks so much for listening to the Smart Community Podcast. Show notes for this episode and all other episodes are available on our website, mysmart.community/podcast. If you have any questions for us or any of our guests, you can email hello@mysmart.community. You can also find us on the socials. We are on LinkedIn and Twitter at SmartCommHQ. That's com with 2 M's. If you are enjoying the podcast, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we would love for you to leave us a rating and review at wherever you listen. This really helps us reach more ears and eyes, so thank you for your support. As always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.